Hello and good morning to our today's SERVIEW Premium webinar. Glad you have made it here to our session today, and I'm very happy that I can introduce you my colleague Andrea KREMER for the topic OKR, Objectives and Key Results. Hello Andrea, how do you do?
Good morning, Marcus. Thank you. I'm very fine. The sun is shining, so everything's good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very fine too. The summer is coming and the autumn is coming. No, the spring is coming, not the autumn. It's too early. The spring is coming, and so yeah, the weather is getting better, and so you feel good. Today we have the topic OKR. Can you give us some introduction? What you will tell us today?
Yeah, sure. So OKR, or Objectives and Key Results, is the newest thing when it comes to goals definition and objectives definition, and I think it's a super fascinating topic. And we'll give a quick introduction about what is it about, why does everybody want to talk about it, and some high-level overview on how it works, but not too much into detail because it's only 1 hour, right?
Yeah. You can have an overfly with a jet through all this
Yes.
topic. Yeah, we get a very good resonance on this new topic in our portfolio. We have it since 4 weeks now, and a lot of participants in the trainings and in-house appointments to talk about it. So it seems to be that it's a very hot topic. Some
Definitely.
housekeeping for our session today. We will take round about 45 minutes, 1 hour. And if you have any questions to what Andrea is talking about, then put it in the question area in your control panel, and we will take a look at it to the questions and answer it. And Andrea have to answer all the questions today. If you cannot manage it to answer it throughout time, then you will get your answer via email after the webinar. And this webinar is recorded. So I think today in the afternoon, we will have it in our YouTube channel. So you can see it again there, or give the link to anybody else who's interested in this topic. Okay, I think that's the important things. And I will hand it over to you. It's your stage now. Have fun, and I'm very curious what's coming.
Thank you very much, Marcus, for your kind and friendly words. So also from my side, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the big question of what is OKR. Let me introduce myself just quickly so you have an idea who's talking to you. I've been part of the SERVIEW ensemble and standing on the SERVIEW stage since September 2014. Before that, I studied psychology, so something a bit unusual in the training and consulting area. And my focus in my studies was on work and organizational psychology. So something like can you improve the working environment? What does good leadership mean? And these kind of things. And my final thesis was about different kinds of leadership and their effect on employees' mental health, like burnout, elements of burnout. And within SERVIEW, of course, I started the very classical way with ITIL, service management. Then I got into contact with governance according to COVID. And I've always loved this topic ever since. I'm part of our soft skills team, and I also partly developed our DevOps training portfolio back in 2018, I think it was. In November of 2019, I took a little break because my daughter was born, and I restarted working with SERVIEW again in September of last year. Currently, I'm in the human potential department, so I'm doing a lot of personal development for myself right now. Yeah, just shortly about myself. Let's give us a short view about what actually is objectives and key results. What is it all about? And for this, I have a quote for you. one of the biggest drivers or most important persons that worked with OKR is John Doerr. And he said in his famous book, Measure What Matters, a management methodology that helps to ensure that the company focuses efforts on the same important issues throughout the organization. Let's just let this sink in for a little moment. This means that with OKR, we will enable organizations, or organizations will enable themselves to have everybody roughly go into the same direction. Everybody is participating in the same efforts. Not everybody does the same, but every activity within the organizations is directed towards a central goal. And this is something that, according to my experience, is something very challenging for many organizations, where a lot of energy or synergy might have been there, but it gets lost in the chaos of different activities and initiatives. So when we talk about objectives and key results, let's quickly try to understand what an objective means. An objective for each and every team and department, and also the entire organization, gives a clear answer to the questions of where are we going. I just have to find my mouse. There it is. Because that's an important question, right? So what is the direction that we are going? What is the next step to improve our company, to bring our organization forward? And usually in day-to-day business, the objectives are combined with the measurement of the activities to be done. So where are we going, and what do we have to do in order to fulfill this direction? The problem in today's work is that very often this is not clear. So we have an idea where we have to go, but we don't know in advance what we have to do in order to get there. Because everything is very, very quick, very changing, very agile. And please don't misunderstand me. Agility, I think, is a very, very important element of today's work. So let's try to step back from measuring activities. You have to do this and you have to do that and you have to call your customers 5 times a week. And let's try to move towards how can we measure that we've achieved this goal? How do we know we're on the right track? Not how do we know what you are doing, but how do we know while we're on en route that we're going into the right direction? Talking about agility makes you maybe think that OKR is a completely new thing, but it's not. OKR was established as early as the 1970s. At this time, Intel, today one of the biggest enterprises I know, was a very, very small, and they were guided by, I think it was COO Andy Grove, and he was known to be the guy who really unofficially led the company, and he developed the idea of short time frames and clear and motivating definitions of objectives there around 1970. And John Doerr learned this topic, learned this concept from Andy Grove. He worked at Intel at that time, and he comprehensively described this in his book Measure What Matters. And the cool thing about this book is that it tells you the important elements of OKR with stories, with ideas, so that it's not only theory, but it really tells the stories of successful organizations that applied OKR as their management as their, let's say, management method. And one of the enterprises that used and applied OKRs and have done so ever since was Google, because John Doerr invested a lot of money, but also a lot of ideas into Google in 1999. And he convinced Google to implement this framework. And Google produced a book and a very important and guiding YouTube video. It's called OKR, How Google Sets Goals. It is from 2014. Just go on YouTube and look for it. You will find it. And the thing is that whatever Google does is in right now. So of course also OKR became important, and since the emergence of agile ideas is there, and agile ideas, apologies, is getting bigger and bigger, this will lead to more and more understanding that the way we've always defined goals and objectives in the past is, well, the past, and we need to look at things from a different perspective. So you might ask yourself, okay, and why do I need another framework, another measure, another idea and method? Well, let's ask John Doerr. The following slide is extracted from the mentioned video, How Google Sets Goals. And this is an official, or the original presentation made by John Doerr to Google in 1999. And he can tell you quite clearly why you might want to implement objectives and key results. If you apply objectives and key results in your organization, this will lead to more disciplined thinking. The major central goals of your organization will surface. And this will lead to less chaos, less, let's say, different and contradicting initiatives, but more to all the energy of the entire organization being directed in the same way, in the same direction, towards the same goals. And with the transparency, which is big in objectives and key results, it will communicate accurately both what is important for the entire organization, but also who is working on what. What is important right now for the sales department, maybe? What is important for marketing or for production? And maybe it will also help to understand, let's say, production are having, no, let's go the different way. Sales might be losing customers, and they might be having big efforts to gain more customers or to regain the earlier customers. And then maybe someone from production will see that and say, hey, I've got an idea. And they will be able to talk to each other. And as such, with that communication and transparency, you'll be able to gain more momentum in the things you're doing. Objectives and key results also is quite charming, because not only in the end of a quarter, you will know whether you have achieved your objectives, but you will also know while you're working on them whether you're getting closer to your objectives. So you will also be able to measure progress. And this is a cool thing, because usually in plans and designs and strategies, at the end of the day or at the end of the year, you will look back and you will say, well, we failed. And then it's over. There's nothing you can do anymore because the year is over. But with the concept of objectives, and key results, you will be able to really be active throughout the year. And you will be able to maybe change the way you approach your direction. And as I already said, and I cannot stress that enough, according to my experience also in consulting, usually you have a lot of energy. People apply a lot of energy in their different projects and initiatives and improvements. And some people are implementing service management, others are implementing agile development methods in production. They're trying to save money. In other areas, you will spend money on other things. And in the end of the day, you have no result from those. And if you're able to focus efforts, everybody understood, okay, this is the way we're going right now, and this is something I can do for that joint goal, you will really finally get there. So the benefit of OKR is the same direction for everybody, which will in the end save you time, money, and it will save you from a lot of frustration. Okay, so how does that work? First of all, you need a guiding picture. I've had some difficulties translating this into English because in German there is this beautiful word called Leitbild, and it's if you translate it directly, it's guiding picture. Oh, and I wrote goading picture. I'm sorry. In English, it's usually the vision or the mission. To make clear what I mean with that, allow me to quote one of the biggest movies of the millennium, according to my opinion, which is The Lord of the Rings. Like you have Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli chasing the Urukai. You have Samwise and Frodo going towards Mordor. You have that epic scene in the end, so in the Return of the King, where you have Aragorn and the soldiers of Gondor and the soldiers and the king of Rohan, everybody lining up in front of the black gates, knowing that they might, with a very high probability, might not return home. For Frodo, to ensure that Frodo and Samwise have the chance to throw that ring into the fire. Everybody in the entire story knows that this, the big guiding picture, the vision, the mission of what we are doing, this ring needs to be destroyed. And it's only possible by throwing it into the into Mount Doom, as we saw in the first movie. And this is what we need the vision or the mission for, to really have that understanding and also that motivation to put in the effort to get there. Of course, we don't have to sacrifice ourselves for our company, but we need to have that motivating idea that makes you want to stand up in the movie theater and charge the orcs together with Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli and Pippin and Merry. This is what we want. There's one very, very amazing video about that also on YouTube. It's from Simon Sinek. He talks about the golden circle. The golden circle very nicely shows you what or why people follow other people. And he says at the beginning of everything, in the center of motivation, there's the big question of the why. Why do we do things? Why do we, let's say, chase orcs in The Lord of the Rings? Or maybe in a more normal environment, why am I getting up every morning, driving to work, maybe putting on a uniform and doing my job? Why is it that I'm doing that? And he brought up a beautiful example, which is Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King with his famous speech of "I have a dream," that the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slaves can sit together peacefully. This is the why. This is the motivation, and people are motivated and inspired by you if your motive, your why, matches their motive, and if they can take that up for themselves. Of course, it's also important to know how you do things. And it's also important to say what you actually do, especially in a company. Try hiring people or finding customers if you don't tell them what you do. But at the center of everything needs to be the why. I'll give you a very simple example and you all can see that right in front of you. SERVIEW's what is consulting and training. SERVIEW's how is different, like with flip charts and workbooks and working interactively and the premium webinars and our digital experiences like the digital agile management experience last week or the digital service management experience in May. So we try to do what we do in a different way. It's pretty cool, but it's not what drives me and makes me sit in front of my computer sometimes in the middle of the night, finally when the baby is asleep, and I have a few ideas, say, oh, this is something cool, I need to enter that into my webinar. Or there's this talk I need to do. We have that mission statement. It's, whoa, I have to translate that on the fly. We want to be attractive to special personalities. We want to accelerate them, and we want to help them develop. This is the why. And this is what guides me in what I'm doing, and what guides my wonderful colleagues who really pulled off a great digital experience and were completely spaced out at the end of the week. This is what you need. You need the why. And this is what the vision and the mission is about. And this vision of or mission, or the guiding picture, should be valid at least for 3 to 10 years, because it's a principle that is at the core of everything. At the core of everything. And from that vision, you extract something that is called a motto or a midterm goal. The motto shows you where you want to stand within the next year. So a motto is basically something like, okay, let's do a mind kind of a mental kind of thing. Let's imagine it is April 2022. Where are we standing? Where are we in April 2022? And that gives you an idea where to focus your energies. And it should still be with that emotional, that motivating speech. And from this motto, from these midterm goals, you extract your objectives and key results. And these objectives and key results should definitely be defined for every 3 to 4 months. And you might add annual objectives. This depends on the literature you're referring to. Some say, yes, you need that. Some say, no, don't do that. It depends a bit on the way you see the world. Why every 3 to 4 months? It's simple. Because if you try to make a plan for the next 12 months, you're pretty sure to fail because we don't know what the world looks like in 12 months. So, with that time frame of 3 to 4 months, it's a time frame that you can sort of manage, that gives a bit of security and safety. So this is why every more or less quarter of a year is a good thing. Central characteristics of the OKR. What are they supposed to look like? They are value driven. So remember, you have that emotional, inspiring thing within you. And the objectives should be phrased in a way that they're looking for value. So we don't say, write 3 blog entries every month. Because if the blog entries are bad, or if the blog isn't available to our customers, or they don't know about that, those blog entries will bring no value. So we want to look at objectives that connect us to our customers. If you talked about maybe ITIL or COVID or the agile approaches, this is nothing new to you. Objectives and key results are transparent. So I know what you're working on. You know what I'm working on. We both know what our management is working on and where our management is going. According to my experience, this is one of the biggest challenges in organizations, really setting up this transparency. They are future-oriented and activating. This basically means that the objectives and especially the key results give me a way of acting upon them. So, for example, don't say, I want to lose weight. It's better to say, I want to eat less calories or do more sports, because this is something that looks into the future and makes you say, okay, I haven't done my sports today yet. I'll go for a quick run, maybe. The teams that are responsible for the fulfillment of each objective keep the ownership for this objective throughout the entire life cycle. So from the definition to the fulfillment to the maybe changing it, it all remains with the same team. It needs to have good balance between challenge and self-efficacy. So of course, an objective needs to challenge me, say, okay, it's going to be tough, but I can do it. But an objective should never go into the direction of, whoa, there's no way I can do that. Because with that idea, maybe you saw it in my body language. You lean back and you don't do anything. A tiny little piece of advice at this point. In the Google YouTube video, you can see that they're talking about aspiring objectives, where a 60% fulfillment rate is considered a good thing. This is something very special for companies with a very agile mindset, with a lot of resources at hand, and with a culture that supports that. If you get started with OKR, it's better to go for the so-called committed objectives and key results that you can fulfill with a bit of a stretch, because otherwise people will lose hope and motivation really quickly. OKR needs to be defined top-down. So management defines where the company is going and they define their objectives, and then the teams do that. But is never allowed to go with direct delegation of duties. So the way we do that, the management defines the objectives for the company, and then each team with their own ownership looks at those objectives and say, okay, I have an idea what to do about this, and we can provide that for this objective, but it's never supposed to be like the delegation. You have to fulfill this, you have to fulfill that. And the key results show both the final achievement after 4 months, but also they need to help you with progress. Okay, you might say, well, but we're so busy with day-to-day business, and we've established a great set of KPIs, so key performance indicators. Do we have to throw them all away now? No, please don't. OKR and KPI complement each other beautifully. Please ignore the red circle for a second. KPIs are great if you want to check your day-to-day business or week-to-week business compared to certain targets. So we might have the target of a mean participant training rating of 4.0 stars. That's okay, it's a great KPI. Now imagine that the red circle just appeared. And you see that we achieved 4.8, I think, in January, and 4.5 in February, and 4.3 in March. And suddenly, woof, you have a dip in your achieved KPI. It's only at 3.2, I think. And this is the moment where you might say as an organization, whoa, there's something wrong there. And this is one of the cases where you want to apply OKR. Because they are very motivating, but they also require a lot of energy. Or you want to get into a new market, or you want to have skyrocketing improvements. Say, okay, we don't want to have a target of 4 stars, but we have a target of 5 stars. We really want to make a big leap towards being better. This is the moment where you might want to go for OKRs and get better and better and better with each iteration. As I already said, objectives and key results require and generate a lot of energy if they're formulated in the right way. How does that work? It works beautifully. In the psychology of humans, OKR and other agile approaches, if you apply them correctly, are really, really helpful. Let me tell you why. I really did some research on that because I wanted to know really what is the newest tendency in work psychology and motivational psychology. And according to my studies, there are the so-called basic psychological needs. And these are those 3. I want to feel related. I want to feel part of a team, or also part of a circle of friendships and part of a family. I want to feel related in my area of work. At the same time, another motive or need is the need of autonomy. I want to have the freedom of choice. I want to be able to make my own decisions, at least within a certain area. And I want to feel good at what I'm doing. You can generate the feeling of relatedness for your employees with respect and appreciation, like not only for their performances, but also the respect for them as a person. Allow me to give you a not so great example. I heard about someone in a leading position within a big enterprise referring to their employees as lemmings. Lemmings, you know, those little animals, and if the first one jumps off a cliff, everybody follows. This is not what respect means. So really giving your employees the feeling that the way they are as a person is a good thing. Giving them a team to feel at home in, and trying to include them as much as possible in the decision making. This really shows respect towards them as a complete person. Autonomy means giving employees as much freedom of decision as possible. As I said, as possible. So maybe there are activities that simply need to be done. For example, doing a fire drill or following certain rules and laws. And at this point, where you can where you cannot give freedom of choice, openly communicate why these activities are necessary. Like, why do I have to hand in my sheet with working hours and non-working hours in the time of Kurzarbeit here in Germany? Yeah, because like this, we can ensure that everybody within the team, within the company, can keep their job. Oh, okay. That's a good point. And give them the feeling of competency. Match the person with the job. And again, at this point, it's important to find the right balance between the feeling of safety and the challenge. And this also depends on the person. Like we have a few colleagues who will take a new topic, a new training like every 3 months. And we have others who say, okay, I feel fine doing my ITIL foundation again and again. It needs to match the person and have an idea how the individual development might look like. And the cool thing about OKR is with that approach of team, of the team, people working in teams and people being measured as teams with their performance. This gives the feeling of relatedness, giving those teams the autonomy to define by themselves which objectives they want to define, as long as this objective matches the entire objectives, the overall objectives, and giving them also the autonomy on how to fulfill this gives huge sense of autonomy without people feeling lost. And the competency goes in the same way. And this is why psychologically OKR is a great method to really get people motivated. I would like to give you a few critical success factors about the implementation of OKR and what you need to keep in mind. And I would like to do that with the words of the person who introduced OKR to the world. This is Andy Grove, the man who invented OKR with Intel and really established that there. And he says, some basic thoughts need to be understood in order to make OKR implementation successful. Less is more. Set up 3 to 5 objectives with 5 key results maximum. Maybe even less, especially if you're just getting started, or you have to combine OKRs with already existing KPIs. Otherwise, people won't be able to keep an overview of all the things they are supposed to be working on. Set goals top down and bottom up. And this is something interesting because in the book by John Doerr, who wrote it down the way he learned it from Andy Grove, it says teams and employees should define at least half of their own goals. In the newer books and literature about OKR as a topic, you find the definition that teams and employees should define all of their own goals. In my opinion, if we only look at the OKR part of it now, I think that it should be within the teams, maybe supported by their leader and also discussed by, so that maybe you can ask some questions about how the company objectives are meant. No dictating. Only those OKRs that people actively agreed to will lead to them really putting in efforts. I will not put big efforts like the large ones into objectives I don't agree with. It's called the not invented here syndrome, by the way. Stay flexible. If suddenly the entire world makes an 180 degrees turn, don't stick to your OKR. Let them be flexible as well. This is something not new to those of you who have worked with the agile ideas. Fail hard and fail fast. If you don't go wrong somewhere, you never know whether your way is just the easy way or also the right way. For OKRs, we expect our employees to be courageous because we want them to define motivating OKRs, so those that they can reach with a bit of a stretch. So don't combine OKRs with payment, or the achievement of OKR with payment. Because what would happen then? If I get paid by the OKR I reach, well, I will define OKRs that I can easily reach within the first third of my quarter. That's not the idea. OKR is a tool to really generate that energy and that motivation, which shouldn't be managed by payment. And it will take a while. I mean, of course, there are always those Lord of the Rings fans that ask, hey, why didn't they simply ask the eagles to throw that stupid ring into that mountain? Because then Lord of the Rings would have been a book like that and not 1,200 pages. Because life is not easy. We need that rocky road once in a while. Otherwise, we would have missed a great law of storytelling. I added a few other critical success factors. OKR is no metal bullet. It's not a magical wand. You wave it around once or twice and suddenly everything is fine. To really successfully use that method, you need unquestionable commitment of the upper management. Also, not only for the first, but for the second and the third and the fourth cycle if needed. They need to stand both behind the topic and the method and behind their employees, which means trust, which means let people do their job. Don't interfere with micromanagement. We need an agile culture, so collaboration, going that iterations, failing, being willing to fail, or the willingness to change toward that culture. We need motivated teams, so people who are willing to take a look at that method. But according to my experience, this is not the problem in organizations. You have so many motivated people in your organization who are willing to go that extra step and another one and another one. But you also need to give them room to channel their motivation. Just imagine that. You generate energy, you generate motivation. You need to let it go somewhere. That's important. And I'll be honest, you need a few resources. You need to make some room in the employee's time for this improvement and for a rocky road. So I'll take Google as an example. In Google, people spend 1 day per week doing improvement ideas and their own little side project that might or might not lead to success. You don't have to do that. But in order to fulfill OKRs and to apply them, people need to have some time to spend in their own ways for your improvements. You need measurements that include both quantitative and qualitative metrics. So, for example, of course, we want incidents to be closed quickly, but we also want happy customers. This is quantitative and qualitative metrics. And we need at least one expert in the organization who is willing to be a Gandalf, who will guide, drive, and strengthen the implementation of OKR, who knows what they're talking about, who will carefully lead the others towards success. Of course, they don't have to throw themselves off the bridge in Moria, but someone who is also willing to, let's say, make some broad shoulders and remind people of their I'm sorry, I just lost the word, of their responsibility to go towards OKR. And at this point, of course, I would, from my entire heart, like to invite you to take a look at our OKR trainings, where I put a lot of hard blood in, you would say in German. So we need a driver for the OKR. So we call it the certified professional, call it any way you want. We could call him OKR Gandalf if you like, but I'm not sure whether this would work with copyright. And we realize the training with a lot of activity, a lot of group work to give you a lift towards your journey as an OKR professional, if you're interested. And I'm sure that this topic is going to stay with us for quite a while. Marcus, are there any questions that arose during my presentation?
Indeed, there are some questions, but first, thank you very much for your speech and for the insights that you have gave us. I have learned a lot, and what I've realized is that OKR is much more than only another method for measurement. It's really, it's a lot with leadership and not consulting and culture and
Yes.
transformation and so on.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. The first question is, it goes in the direction of OKRs and KPIs. Can you give another example for the difference between OKRs and KPIs?
Okay, sure, happily. Let's imagine you're in sales, and as sales, you have your KPI of generating, let's say, 30 leads a month. I'm not from sales, so please change the number if it doesn't seem realistic to you. So your KPI is 30 leads a week, a month. And maybe you will find, no, the KPI is leads per month and the target is 30, like that. And maybe you will find a decline in the leads you generate. Yeah? Then you want to say, okay, we need to do something about it. And then you get together and say, okay, we keep losing potential customers to another company. So the customers that we were trying to talk to switched from our company to to company Y, let's say. And that's the moment where you say, okay, we need to change that. And then you say, okay, our objective for the first cycle, for the first iteration, might be get an understanding of the customer's needs and getting closer to them. And then you say, okay, how can we measure? This is where we go towards the key results. How can we measure our understanding of the customer's needs? And then you say, okay, interview, let's say 40 customers of those that are actual customers and find out their needs. Second, you could say interview or try to reach is too much activity based. Out of those who left us within the sales process, understand why they didn't. Out of 20 opinions, maybe. This is where you go towards the objectives and the key results. And within the next cycle, you might say, beat the company Y in 5 categories. So maybe you found out during the first cycle that maybe your entering process is way too long, that the emails that are sent from your companies are perceived as too old school, and that you maybe need a bigger basis of possible customers. And this is how you're going to apply the objectives and key results as a basis for improvement, while maybe still measuring your KPIs of the 30 customers per month.
Okay, thank you for this additional example. It's getting clearer now.
Absolutely welcome.
We have 2 other questions. One is, I understood that all key figures are public. Is this transparency really necessary?
Good question. The thing is that at least according to my experience, or according to how I understood the concept, at least the objectives need to be transparent. Yes, because only like that, maybe the sales department will know what the production department is working on, and the IT department will maybe understand what sales needs. And this is why it's important to have at least some part of transparency. Of course, maybe you will find that at least the plans you're working towards, like, okay, we have a decline in customers and we want to understand why they stepped away from us, and you do the interviews, and you don't want to tell everybody that you're doing interviews. There might be a few reasons why you at least wouldn't publicize your plans. But sorry to say that, yes, at least according to the framework, the transparency of at least objectives is definitely a must. For the key results, I would need the specific constellations why certain things need to be untransparent. Is untransparent a word? Yes, for now it is.
I have understand that the coordination of different parties in the organization is one of the major goals to
Yes.
Use OKRs, and so without transparency, the coordination is difficult.
Yes.
Okay. I have another question. Should I get OKRs from top down or vice versa to my teams?
What you need from the top is the direction. So if I'll take SERVIEW as an example, I would definitely need Michael Kresse and Markus at this point to understand where we are going for the next year and the next quarter. But from this point, I'll take it. From this point, I or we as a team in Human Potential develop our own team objectives and team key results. But I need my management for the overall direction that we're going in.
Is that one reason why OKRs fits so good to the agile philosophy, because of this kind of self-organization?
Yes. Which is pretty interesting. Last week I had a very cool training, no, the week before, with OKR, and I had one participant from a very agile organizational context and two participants from the classic waterfall structure in an organization. And for him, for the one person from the agile area, it was completely logical and he could completely follow me there. And the other ones, they really went for the challenge, but for them to understand this ownership within the team, those iterative approaches, it was a big step. So it's, yes, OKR is pretty easy if you're already working in that agile approach, but if not, it's a stretch.
We are getting to the end of the session, so I think we will only doing one last question. And the question is, how do I get the team on board through or with OKRs?
With two things, I think. First, by leading by example. So if you're a leader, then you'll need to show in a transparent way where you're going and why you're going as a company. And I think that maybe in the first round, your team might lack self-efficacy. So the belief that they can really do that. But if they receive support, and they also receive methodical support from somebody who knows how OKR are defined, and they really find that they have the freedom of defining their way, and at the same time you're at their back protecting them from possible negative, let's say, vibes in the organization, it will take one, maximum two iterations to have them on board. Because if you understand that your team is really motivated and that they're good at what they're doing and they really know what they're doing, giving them the freedom that OKR implies will really lift them up. So give them a little bit time and give them the right support, and they will be on board pretty easily.
This is not a specific answer for change with OKR. I think this is a question of good leadership, which we have with all new method you bring in.
Yeah.
And so we see not everything is new what we heard,
Definitely
but
not.
definitely not. And but it's still relevant and more relevant than ever because change is coming much faster now. Andrea, thank you very much for the speech. Thank you very much for the insights. It was a pleasure to hear to you. I think we've learned a lot. And if someone have additional questions, you can contact Andrea in LinkedIn or Xing, or and there are the email address. And perhaps you are motivated now to take a look at our training offerings. And like we said, the resonance is very good right now. So lots of people are looking for it, and we will see what's happening in the future. Andrea, thank you very much. Thank you very much for everybody for following us, and hopefully we see us in the future in one of our services or another webinar. Take care of yourself and stay healthy. That's the most important thing right now. Stay healthy and goodbye.
Bye.